The next item of business is the presentation of certificates of appreciation. I would like to take this time to acknowledge the contribution of past councillors James Farrell, Paul Hastings, Susan Lewin. Unfortunately, Susan could not be with us today. However, I understand that Jim and Paul were here. In fact, I met them outside, so that's good. I'd now like to read the citation for Jim Farrell and then ask him to come up to receive his certificate. Thank you. Jim was appointed to council in January 2008 and served 2 terms until December 2013. In 2008, on his first year on council, Jim served as an OAA trustee and member of the practice committee. Jim was also an active participant on EBO, or Engineers, Architects, and Building Officials, as well as the Government Affairs Task Group. He was involved as a member of the Practice Advisory Service Task Group. Jim was also a key society liaison to the St. Lawrence Valley Society of Architects. In 2009, Jim was elected to the position of Senior Vice President and Treasurer and served on the Executive Committee. In this role, Jim served on the Audit Committee, Education Committee, and also ex officio as a member of the Prodemnity Board of Directors. He was involved on the Complaints Committee, as well as continuing to act as Council Society Liaison to the St. Lawrence Valley Society of Architects. Jim was elected to the position of Vice President Regulatory in 2010. In this role, he served as the chair of the Experience Requirements and Registration Committees and was active on the Complaints Committee. Jim also represented the OAA on the OAAS Board of Directors. He continued to serve on the Audit Committee and was involved in the Building Committee, AAPEO Joint Liaison Committee, OAA OGCA Best Practices Committee, the Act and Regs Task Group, the newly formed Contract Administration Committee. Jim continued to act as Council Society Liaison to St. Lawrence Valley Society of Architects. Jim was re-elected to council and continued to serve on the Complaints Committee and Experience Requirements Committee. He continued to share his experience on the Audit Committee, Building Committee, OAA PEO Joint Liaison, and he played an integral role in the separation from between us and OASET a few years ago in the result that the OAAS became our sole technology arm of the OAA. Jim served on the BIFA review, the C-Exact review task groups, and continued in his role as Society Liaison to the St. Lawrence Valley. Jim continued to serve on Complaints Committee in 2012, Experience Requirements Committee, the Act and Regs Task Group. He participated and offered his knowledge and experience on the OAAS Board, the OAA PEO Joint Liaison Committee, and Council Liaison. This past year, Jim continued to serve on the Complaints Committee and the ERC. He participated on the OAAS Board and the Act and Regulation Task Group. On behalf of Council and the Association, I'd like to extend sincere appreciation to Jim for all the work that he has done and continued success in his future works. Jim Farrell. Would you say a few words?
Thanks, everybody. It's been a nice ride, and I do miss some of the people. I don't miss the email traffic, but I'm still around doing a few things and enjoy every bit of it. Thanks very much.
Paul Hastings. Paul was appointed to council in January 2005 and served a possible record-setting 3 terms until December 2013. In 2005, on his first year on council, Paul served as the liaison to Public Works, Government Services Canada, ORC, CEO, PEO, OGCA, OSPI, and OAA Industry Group. He served on the Alternative Finance Procurement Task Group and Continuing Education Committee. In 2006, Paul continued to participate on the Continuing Education Committee as well as the BCDS Committee. He served on the Discipline Committee and on the RAIC National Con Ed Committee. Paul was also involved as University Liaison Task Group as the representative to Ryerson. In 2007, Paul continued to participate on the Discipline Committee, serving as chair. He also served on Con Ed as well as the Conference Committee. Paul was the council liaison to Hamilton and Burlington Society of Architects. Paul continued to act as chair of the Discipline Committee in 2008. He also continued to serve on Con Ed and Conference Committee. Paul participated on the Government Relations Committee and continued to represent the Hamilton and Burlington Society as its council liaison. 2009, Paul remained in the position of Chair of Discipline and continued his participation on the Con Ed and Conference Committees. He continued to represent the Hamilton and Burlington Society of Architects as its council liaison. 2010, Paul continued in his role as the Discipline Committee Chair and as a member of Con Ed and Conference Committees. Paul also became involved in the Committee on the Future of the Profession and Interns. He remained as liaison to the Hamilton and Burlington Society. Paul continued to demonstrate his expertise and knowledge as chair of the Discipline Committee in 2011, participated in the newly formed Young Architects and Interns Forum, known as YAIF, also as well as the Intern Architect Program Review Task Group. Paul continued to serve on the Con Ed and Conference Committees and continued to act as a liaison. 2012, Paul was elected to the position of Vice President Regulatory, where he served as the Chair of Discipline and the Chair of the Experience Requirements Committee. In his role as Vice President, Paul participated on the Registration Committee. He served as the Chair of Acts and Regs Task Group and a member of the Practice Committee. Paul continued his liaison duties with the Hamilton and Burlington Society. This past year, Paul was elected to the position of Vice President Practice, where in this position he served as Chair of the Practice Committee. He was also a member of the Engineers, Architects, Building Officials Committee, EBO, and the Subcommittee on Building Codes and Regulations, aka SCOPCAR. The Construction Contract Administration Committee and the OAA OGCA Best Practices Committee. Paul also served as a member of the Education and Practice Review Committee, and long-term relationship continued with the Hamilton and Burlington Society as their council liaison. I'd also like to add one thing that wasn't put in here, that Paul founded a small practice group called SPIF, and I think that has had a much greater impact than he probably anticipated. So on behalf of Council and the Association, I would like to extend a sincere appreciation to Paul and wish him continued success in his work. Paul Hastings. Now, hey, over here, we got to take your picture. All right. A few words.
Thank you, Bill. I know exactly where I'm going to put this. I have this wall that says best dad, best husband, honest golfer. The fun thing about it, my kids only had one dad, so why is it the best dad? Who am I being compared to? But you know, honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed my role in council, working with very smart people, very intelligent people. People were very committed. It really wasn't work. It was something I wanted to do. I guess I'll stop now and say thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate this. And keep up the good work, council. You guys do a good job, and staff is also very helpful and supportive too. Thank you all.
Susan Lewin. Susan was appointed to council January 2011 and served until December 2013. On her first year on council, she served on the Continuing Education Committee. She also served as chair of the Sustainable Built Environment Committee, also known as SBEC. Susan participated as the council liaison for the Toronto Society of Architects. 2012, she was elected to serve on the Executive Committee in the role of Vice President Communications. In this role, she became member of the Communications Committee and was the source of the initial proposal to retain a public awareness firm and raise the profile of public awareness of the OAA, architects and architecture. She continued to serve as the chair of SBEC and a member on the Con Ed Committee, and continued her role as council liaison to the Toronto Society. This past year, Susan continued in her role as chair of the SBEC Committee. She also participated as a member of the Budget and Practice Committees, and she continued to serve on Con Ed Committee as well as council liaison to the Toronto Society. On behalf of council and the association, we extend a sincere appreciation to Susan and wish her continued success in her practice. Susan Lewin.